David, where the hell have you been?
Train delays.
What do you mean train delay? It's been 4 months!
Yeah, I know, they've been really bad.
Anyway, I was just thinking, we need to have like this, some political gag or something at the beginning of the show, something current events. Any ideas?
What about Israel and Gaza?
F***ing hell no! Are you insane?
Okay, Israel winning Eurovision?
I mean, the song was pretty bad, but no.
Ooh, Brexit.
Getting a bit boring now, isn't it? Same old shit. Conservatives argue against them, they come up with a half-baked plan, EU rejects it immediately. Next,
How about Trump's steel tariffs? What about Trump coming to the UK and then meeting Putin?
well, I think Trump's own actions and words make him look worse than we could.
What about that law that Oman passed against helping immigrants?
I mean, that's not particularly funny, to be honest. It actually reminds me of something.
Train delays?
Nazi...
The royal wedding?
Nazism!
What, you think the royal wedding is Nazism?
Oh, no, that's just very uninteresting.
Do you mean to say that you want to start an episode of the David Frankal Show without a punchline?
I mean, I don't know, just blame it on Network Rail and pretend we couldn't do anything about it. Well, it's now the end of July, which means it's been almost 4 months since the last episode of my weekly show, The David Frankal Show. It's been a very busy 4 months, a lot has happened, and I've discussed some of those things already in the Rambling Update 2 video, which you can go watch in the description below if you have a long attention span. For those of you who don't, the basic summary is that my dad is leaving the Manchester Airports Group and going to work in Muscat, Oman. Presuming I actually upload this on time, at the time of uploading, he's currently on his flight. He'll be there on his own for a year, and then once I finish my A-levels, Mum and Noam will then move over, but I'm going to stay here for university. Although I might also take a gap year first. What would I do in that gap year? I don't know, I'll figure it out. In the meantime, we've made it through May, although we've yet to get rid of her, and also June and July, and it's been bloody hot. So since the last episode of the David Frankal Show, we spent a long weekend in Muscat to get to know the place. It was an interesting experience, in many ways strangely reminiscent of Tel Aviv. You had this massive highway which had recently been constructed, brand new airport that had opened out a month before we came, which was way too big considering about 6 people a year currently use it. There was a lot of, very conservative Islam there, but there was also quite a large kind of modern western part of the city, and in fact half of Oman's population is made up of expats, many of which are from western nations, so it's quite a funny juxtaposition. My dad's job is essentially to model off the success of places like Tel Aviv and also Dubai and bring more tourists into the country. We also went to another menorah weekender in Hartington Hall, which involved a trip to Matlock Bath, where we rode the Heights of Abram cable car. I made a video about that, obviously. Then Ellie, Rebecca and I went to watch Interactive Introverts with Dan and Phil. My review is basically the same as it was last time, in that I like Dan and Phil, I just don't really like most of the fans. I mean, my ear's just still recovering from the enormously unnecessary amount of screaming. Then of course there was the May 2018 timetable change, yet another spanner in the works for what has already been probably my most chaotic summer term ever. I mean, obviously it's been an absolute disaster, but I've already talked about that extensively in an entire bonus video in Train News, all about how the timetable change failed, so I'll just move on from that. On the first day of the timetable, I did actually ride around on a few trains. I caught the first train from Piccadilly to Victoria, direct, although there had been a few demonstration runs before, so it wasn't really the first, but it was the first kind of proper timetabled service. Then my cousin Lily from Hungary came around for 2 weeks, so we went on a few excursions, show around. One weekend we spent going up to Hadrian's Wall, doing all this kind of Roman army and ruins and everything, so by the end of it we were pretty sick of Romans. Then one weekend we went to London, which happened to coincide with the 2-year anniversary of the Brexit referendum, which was marked by a big pro-People's Vote march, which we popped down and visited, since we happened to be in London anyway. Also we had 2 open days. I went to the Oxford and Cambridge open days, by train of course. For the Cambridge one particularly, I went into a lot of previously uncharted railway territory, so I guess it's 2 outings for the price of 1. Also, my dad and I spent a weekend cycling from Buxton to Matlock along a disused railway, which has since been converted into a cycle path. It's known as the Monson Trail, and it's part of the original Midland Main Line route into Manchester. It's an absolutely fantastic cycle trail because it goes right through the peaks, so the views are amazing, but because it's a disused railway line, it's remarkably flat, so it's quite easy to cycle through. You've got lots of viaducts and lots of tunnels as well. My main criticism of the path is either end, because it doesn't actually go from Buxton to Matlock. It starts about 4 miles outside of Buxton, so to get to it you've got to cycle right along the A6, which is quite narrow, and you have some insane drivers going at 60 miles per hour, so that's not that pleasant. And then at the other end the trail ends just past Bakewell at Coombs Lane, and then there's kind of a gap before the trail picks up again in Rowsley and then goes all the way to Matlock, with the second half not part of the Monson Trail, but it's a cycle trail which runs alongside Peak Rail, a steam railway, which we of course went on as well. Whilst we were in Matlock, we also visited Cromford Station, which of course Jeff and Vicky visited during all the stations, and there they recreated the a single cover from Oasis, Some Might Say, which was filmed on the the picture was taken on the disused railway platform at Cromford. We did not recreate the photo, but we went to see the station and it was lovely. And more recently we also spent 4 days in Centre Park's Woburn Forest with our cousins from London. Oh yeah, and also since the last episode of the David Frankal Show, it was that time every 4 years where David briefly pretends to care about football. England did surprisingly well this year, just Croatia did slightly better. I was quite happy with the eventual outcome because I had France in the family sweepstake. In the school sweepstake I had Switzerland and Portugal, so slightly disappointing there. Come on Switzerland, I was rooting for you. Just a few days ago I was at Piccadilly filming episode 60 of the David Frankal Show, where I met 2 members of staff who were notable for 2 different reasons. One of them was a train dispatcher on platform 13, who I know he was just doing his job, but he came across as a bit of a dick. His first thing was that, for some reason, Network Rail at Piccadilly suddenly decided that the end of platform 13 is suddenly off limits, even though it's by far the best place to go train spotting. So you have to, there's like this, where the electric pole holding up the electric wires ends around this blue frame, and he said, oh, you can't go past there. Even though I see no difference between standing 5 metres along the platform to 5 metres back in terms of safety. I don't think it makes the slightest bit of difference. It just means that the train spotting angle of viewpoint is 10 times worse. And then he also tried to insist that train spotters now have to sign in at Piccadilly for some reason, which is insane because as far as he's concerned, I'm just a passenger with a camera. I've got a valid ticket, I'm travelling when I'm finished. How can you differentiate me from just a regular passenger? So they don't make passengers sign in because that would be insane, so why should I? The other staff member I came across, totally different story, was a northern driver, and he was a subscriber to this YouTube channel, and he shouted out, he pulled in, he said, Mr. Frankal, and I was gobsmacked because it's never happened to me before. I've never spontaneously met a subscriber in public before. I'm not counting the audio call because I know I met some subscribers there, but we were expecting to see each other because it was the launching of the audio call. This was the first time I was just in public and unexpectedly just came across a subscriber who recognised me. That's not happened to me before, so I was quite astounded. His name was Dan Blizz, actually. You can go follow him on Twitter if you want. Oh yes, and throughout all this we also had our summer mocks, which even though they were quite important because they went to informing our university predicted grades, for whatever reason most of my subject teachers decided that no, they weren't that important. So compared to previous years where I'd had, 3 or so weeks of lessons that were just kind of sitting and revising, I essentially had no in-school time to revise at all. So whatever spare kind of lesson capacity we had, we spent on doing all sorts of kind of additional projects and things that didn't actually count towards anything. In history we did kind of a dry run of the coursework we're doing next year. So we've just finished doing the Russian Revolution, which is on our course, and next year we're doing coursework on the Holocaust, which is this kind of essay where you look at different historical interpretations of how it came about, intentionalism, structuralism, so on and so forth. So for the project we just did is we looked at Nazi Germany, I looked at foreign policy and essentially did a smaller version of the coursework just to practice, basically looking at different interpretations. And then in physics we did we did lots of individual projects. I did a project on seismic waves. So yeah, they were both interesting projects, but at the same time they left essentially no time to revise. Oh, and once we finished those, we immediately then started on Year 13 work to get a head start on that. So, there was also geography coursework, which we did the week after the summer mocks. I spent 4 days at Malham Cove collecting data, which essentially consisted of me scooping up leaves and dirt from the ground and weighing them and then putting them in a furnace and weighing them again. Yeah, it was fun. And I have to write up the notes from that over the summer. And on top of all that, I'm still hoping to get an EPQ done, although I don't know if it's quite likely that I'll actually end up finishing it, but yeah, I'm doing it on a particular theme. I think you can all guess what it is. Here's a hint, you're allowed to do it on pretty much anything. So essentially what I'm saying in all that is that I have been extremely busy. On top of all that, I've been mainly focusing whatever time I spend on YouTube on trying to clear the backlog, which is pretty much why there hasn't been a David Frankal show in over 4 months, though miraculously I did manage to get train news out at the end of May, mainly prompted by the urgency to report on the May 2018 timetable change. I was actually going to do an episode now that school's ended in July, but now I've realised there's just no way I'm going to do that, so the next episode of Train News will have to wait until the end of August. If you are dissatisfied with the number of Train News episodes I've produced in Year 12, then I apologise in advance, because throughout much of Year 13 my hands will be tied behind my back when it comes to YouTubing, so I'm not very optimistic at all about producing any number of episodes. I'll do one in end of August, I'll do one in December, maybe I'll do one in April 2019, if I have time. I don't know, I'm busy, okay? The David Frankal Show, on the other hand, I'm going to try and keep at least monthly throughout Year 13, with again winding down towards the end of the period while I revise. So, and then once I finish my levels and once I'm on a gap year / university, maybe then I'll have more time to do YouTube. In the meantime, I just have to apologise for, rather selfishly putting my own education and university aspirations in front of my YouTube channel. I'm sorry. So yeah, this is probably the first time I've actually had to do proper work over the summer, so summer 2018 is probably the least excited I've ever been for a summer holiday. Oh, and a spot of editing as well, of course, because I'm still a little bit behind from last year, although I've caught up quite well. I have now uploaded the Manchester Docks video, and very recently I also finished off the 4 Oslo videos, so progress is being made. They were of course filmed just before the last episode of the David Frankal Show was. So, now that I've uploaded Oslo, what's coming up? Muscat videos, videos from Matlock, railway journeys to Oxford and Cambridge, and the videos I've been working on with Duncan, which I was supposed to finish last summer and has ended up taking me over a year. They are now fully filmed. It's a series of 3 videos, and I will eventually tell you what they are. Not yet, but I will eventually. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to talk about in this very overdue episode of the David Frankal Show. Probably the most overdue episode I've ever done, to be honest. Sorry, guys. Now, I would love to say that this week's Train Spot of the Week is one of the new TransPennine Express MK5 sets being delivered. The only problem is I haven't seen any. That's actually not true. The first one I saw totally unexpectedly whilst passing through Levenshulme Station. I wasn't expecting to see it, so I just saw, and then it was gone, so I couldn't film it. The second time I was going to go see it at Cheadle-Hulme, and I very annoyingly left the house a bit too late, so I didn't make it to the platform in time. I did actually see it from the street, I did actually film it, but the recording the angle was bad, and it just was a quite poor quality recording. So I'm going to save that for, there's been 4 delivered so far, 13 in total, so I've got another 9 opportunities to see them being delivered, so hopefully I'll get a better shot, and I'll use that instead. Instead, this week's Train Spot of the Week is going to be an unusual spot from the day when a man was walking along the Stockport Viaduct, meaning that all services through Stockport had to be suspended, so they were diverting Pendolinos via Heald Green. So that's this week's Train Spot of the Week. Enjoy. Oh, here's a Pendolino. That's much more exciting. Let's film that instead. Virgin Prize, or the gay Pendolino if you prefer. Trainbow, also, if you like, rainbow train. But again, they only half-assed it because they only painted one end, which I don't really get why. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.